Justin Tomlinson is Conservative MP for North Swindon and with me on the programme this afternoon. Justin, thank you very much for your time. First of all, what was your reaction when you heard the news?
Huge disappointment. I mean, it's not a surprise. There's been rumours of this for some time, but crucially, it's not acceptable. Whilst GLL can't make it work, the owners of the site, or those that have got the lease, are actually Seven Capital, and they're the same people that are responsible for the proposed snow dome and wider development on that site. And the onus is now that Seven Capital find an alternative operator. Just because GLL can't make it work doesn't mean that we have to lose the Oasis. And myself and Robert Buckland, we've already been speaking to Swindon Borough Council and made it crystal clear that if Seven Capital will not sort out a new provider, then Swindon Borough Council should not allow any development by Seven Capital, and Swindon Borough Council should take the full site and the full development back, and they can then make it work. Because any development on that site and the wider site that goes beyond the Oasis, all of that land around there that is currently being proposed for development, will be very profitable, and those profits should be invested into the Oasis to make it financially viable, for whether that's for GLL or any other operator of the Oasis Leisure Centre. It's iconic, it's well loved, it's very well used. It just needs modernising so it can be financially viable.
So that development you're talking about there is where the proposed new snow dome would be in the whole leisure quarter and that sort of thing. So what you're saying is if they can't...
It goes beyond that. Now, whether the snow dome ever comes to fruition or not, there is land beyond that was being proposed for development. Any development generates profit, generates Section 106 money that can then be reinvested into community facilities. So
what you're saying to the council basically is that if they can't sort out the Oasis, then they shouldn't be allowed to develop anything else. Correct. There.
Absolutely. And then the council should take it back, take all of that development. They could do it themselves, do it with a development partner, release the money into the Oasis so it can be modernised, whether that is as grand as a snow dome or a modern version of the Oasis. That then would allow the facility to become financially viable. The problem is, we all know it's a very, very old facility. Very old leisure facilities are very expensive to run. And therefore, everybody accepts there needs to be a cash injection into the Oasis to make it financially viable. And there is a wonderful opportunity with that development. Now, Seven Capital have been given the opportunity to lead that development. And if they want to carry on having that opportunity, they cannot and should not be allowed to let the Oasis close. The onus is on them to find an alternative operator if they can't work with GLL. If they fail to do that, Swindon Borough Council should stand firm and they should take control of the Oasis and the wider development, and that would then safeguard the future of the Oasis. We cannot let the Oasis close.
As you mentioned, there have been rumours for a while that this could be coming. Are you slightly frustrated that nothing has been done so far when these rumours started circulating, that nobody has stepped in or the council hasn't put pressure on the organisations to get it sorted? I mean, I know that the Labour opposition on Swindon Borough Council have said that the council have subsidised GLL to the tune of £3 million apparently last year. So where's that money gone? Are you frustrated that nothing seems to be happening here, even though these rumours have been circulating?
Well, to be fair, I mean, if the council has been putting in additional subsidy, then they have kept the Oasis going longer. My frustration and my anger is aimed at Seven Capital for allowing a potential no operator providing services in the Oasis. That is totally unacceptable. The onus is on Seven Capital, who have the opportunity of development, and with that comes big profits, that they should be making sure, safeguarding the future of the Oasis. And if they are not capable of doing that, then the Borough Council should take the whole thing back, including all of the development opportunities, and making sure that the profits are then reinvested into the much-loved, much-needed, iconic Oasis. So,
The other issue, of course, that we've been hearing today, that the people who are running the leisure centre saying, because of the pandemic and the ongoing lockdowns, we're now in a second lockdown, we might be in one till Easter, and who knows how much longer it could go on than that. And a lot of people calling for more support for sports and leisure centres. There's even a call for a sports recovery fund that we've been hearing about this afternoon. Would you support something like that?
So the government has already put something like £100 million aside to support leisure centres across the country during COVID. The problem for the Oasis is beyond COVID. What GLL are saying is that in normal times they can't make it work. I have sympathy there because the Oasis is such an old site. I used to be the lead member for Leisure on Swindon Borough Council. It's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this. It is a very inefficient building. But part of the deal to allow Severn Capital to have the opportunity of the wider development that could have potentially included the Snowdome was that they would invest in the traditional Oasis site. They haven't done that, and that is what has pushed GLL to say they can't make it work. They've had their hands tied behind their back. Swindon Borough Council have to set a very, very clear ultimatum to Severn Capital. They either sort this mess out, and they sort it out so there is no loss of provision as soon as it's safe to reopen the Oasis, or Swindon Borough Council should take it lock, stock and barrel, including the development land. In my mind, Swindon Borough Council hold all of the cards here. They've got to act tough with Severn Capital, and there can be no variation from that.
Nevertheless, and I understand you saying the government has put money aside to help businesses like this through lockdowns. We were earlier on speaking to the Sport and Recreation Alliance, who were very much saying that money just isn't enough. And if we have more lockdowns for the next 6 months, maybe even a year, then actually a lot of these private leisure centres are going to go under. Should the government be stepping up and putting more money in?
Well, I've worked very, very closely with the Sports and Recreation Alliance for a number of years because I was the co-chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Sport, for which they provided the Secretariat to. And like every industry, every sector of the economy is impacted by COVID, and the government has acted on as circumstances come forward. Now, if we're still in difficulty, if we're still not returned to normality in 6 months, of course they're going to have to review the levels of support. But as it stands today, there is support being provided. The problem with the Oasis goes beyond COVID, and Swindon Borough Council have got to stand firm and make Severn Capital bring it forward. If Severn Capital are willing to do it and do it quickly, then great. But there cannot be any gap in provision at the Oasis once it is safe to reopen, because I fear that if you have a gap, we'll never see it reopen, and that is totally unacceptable.